The hidden attic problem destroying your roof. If you have dark black stains throughout the underside of your roof decking in your attic, your roof is literally crying for help, and most homeowners are completely ignoring the warning signs. I get frantic calls every winter from homeowners who discover their attic plywood is soaking wet during snowstorms. They're convinced their roof is catastrophically leaking, but here's what shocked them and what might shock you. Those weren't leaks at all. Let me explain what's really happening. Just last winter, I had a homeowner call me in a panic at 7 a.m. Snow was covering his roof, and he'd just discovered that every piece of plywood in his attic was wet and dripping. He was convinced he needed a complete roof replacement, which would have been a $15,000 to $25,000 expense for him. But when I got there, I knew immediately what the real problem was, and it wasn't what he thought. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you how to read your attic like a professional roofer reads it. You'll learn the critical difference between roof leaks and ventilation problems, a distinction that could save you thousands of dollars and prevent your home from literally rotting from the inside out. Your attic is trying to tell you something. Learn to read the signs. Here's what you need to know about those dark stains in your attic. Think of your attic like your home's respiratory system. Just as you can tell when someone is having trouble breathing by watching their chest struggle or hearing them wheeze, your attic shows specific symptoms when it can't breathe properly. The key thing to understand is that these visual signs are your early warning system, and knowing how to read them is the difference between a simple fix and catastrophic damage. Let me break down exactly what you're looking at. Dark black stains spread throughout the underside of your roof decking. That's from inadequate ventilation. Moisture is trapped in your attic. These stains typically appear uniformly across large areas because the moisture is coming from inside your home, not outside. It's like when you breathe in a cold window, that condensation spreads evenly across the glass. The same thing is happening in your attic, except instead of disappearing when the sun comes out, that moisture is slowly saturating your wood decking. But if you see localized stains, especially ones that follow a path or create a water trail, or if the plywood is actually wet during or immediately after rainfall, then you're probably experiencing the signs of actual roof leaks. These look completely different because water follows gravity and the path of least resistance. It'll create distinct patterns, often starting at a specific point and spreading downward from there. This is important because inadequate ventilation traps moisture in your attic and will almost always eventually lead to mold growth. We're not talking about a little surface mold you can wipe away. This moisture will saturate your wood roof decking, eventually rotting it from the inside. I've seen roof decking so compromised that you could push your finger right through it. When structural members lose their integrity in that way, you're looking at potential collapse, and that's not an exaggeration. Rotting beams can crack or fail along with decking, endangering your home structurally, causing damage that can easily cost thousands of dollars just for the structural work alone. The worst part? Most homeowners don't catch this until it's too late. By the time you notice the problem from inside your living space, maybe a ceiling stain or sagging drywall, the damage in your attic has been progressing for months or even years. This means that these problems all need to be addressed quickly because they can lead to much bigger and more expensive issues down the road. Early detection and proper diagnosis can literally save you tens of thousands of dollars. The winter emergency that reveals the hidden truth. Let me tell you exactly what happened with that panic homeowner I mentioned earlier. When I arrived at her house that winter morning, the first thing I noticed wasn't what was happening. It was how it was happening. The moisture pattern told me everything I needed to know. The wet wood wasn't following any logical path from the roof down. Instead, every single piece of plywood was uniformly damp, like someone had taken a spray bottle and misted the entire attic. Here's what most people don't understand about how your attic actually works. Normally, an attic breathes through the porous roof. Think of it like your skin. It's constantly exchanging air and moisture with the environment around it. Your roof shingles, underlayment, and decking all allow for some air movement under normal conditions. This natural breathing process helps regulate temperature and moisture levels throughout the year. But when your roof is covered in snow, which blocks that natural airflow, your attic relies solely on its ventilation system to breathe. The snow creates an impermeable barrier, completely sealing off that natural air exchange. Now the moisture in your attic is trapped, relying entirely on those intake and exhaust vents to move air through the space. If that ventilation system isn't sufficient, the moisture building up in your attic has nowhere to go. What those homeowners were experiencing is the effect of inadequate attic ventilation, not roof leaks. The warm air from your heated living spaces rises up into your attic. It's basic physics. This air carries moisture from cooking, showering, breathing, and even your houseplants. In a properly ventilated attic, that moist air would be continuously exchanged with dry, cold air from outside. But when ventilation fails, that moisture-laden air gets trapped. As it hits the cold roof decking, it condenses, just like your breath on a cold window. This condensation saturates the wood roof decking, making it look like a massive leak. I explained this to the homeowner, and his relief was immediate. What he thought was going to be a $20,000 roof replacement turned out to be a ventilation upgrade, a fraction of the cost. But here's what really drove the point home for him. I showed him how to identify the difference. Roof leaks leave evidence. You'll see water stains that leave drip marks. Ventilation problems create that uniform dampness with no clear entry point. Once he understood this, he realized he'd been worrying about the wrong problem entirely. This homeowner's story isn't unique. I've had many similar calls over my decades in this business. Each time, the panic is real and understandable, but the solution is often much simpler and less expensive than feared. The key is knowing what you're actually dealing with, why your roof's breathing system fails, and what it's costing you. Now let me explain exactly how proper attic ventilation is supposed to work and why yours might be failing. Think of proper attic ventilation like your home's HVAC system, but instead of heating and cooling, it's managing moisture and temperature extremes. You have intake vents typically installed in your soffits. Those are the overhangs under your roof edge that let fresh, cooler outside air enter your attic. This air moves up through your attic space, picking up heat and moisture as it goes. Then you have exhaust vents positioned at or near the ridge of your roof that let that hot and or humid air escape. This continuous flow is critical. Industry standards call for 1 square foot of ventilation for every 150 square feet of attic space, split evenly between intake and exhaust. But here's what I see all the time. Homeowners or even some contractors block soffits with insulation, thinking they're improving energy efficiency. Or they'll have ridge vents installed without adequate intake vents, creating a vacuum that can actually pull conditioned air from your living space. It's like trying to breathe through a straw while someone's covering the other end. When this system fails, several destructive processes happen simultaneously. First, excessive heat builds up in summer. I've measured attic temperatures exceeding 160 degrees. This extreme heat doesn't just make your air conditioning work harder, costing you hundreds in energy bills. It literally cooks your roofing materials from underneath. The heat dries out the adhesives in your roof decking, weakening its structural bond. Your shingles lose essential oils, leading to brittleness and premature cracking. What should be a 25 or 30-year roof system might need replacement in just 15 years. But the winter damage can be even worse. That trapped moisture I mentioned earlier, it creates the perfect breeding ground for mold. And we're not talking about a little surface mold. This is structural mold that penetrates deep into wood fibers. The spores can spread through your entire home's air system, potentially causing health issues for your family. I've seen cases where remediation alone cost $8,000, not including the structural repairs needed afterward. Here's what this means for your wallet. Without proper ventilation, you're looking at premature roof replacement, potentially $10,000 to $20,000 earlier than necessary. Your energy bills increase by 10 to 15% as your HVAC system fights against the temperature extremes. Mold remediation can run thousands. Structural repairs from rot run into the thousands. Add it all up, and inadequate ventilation could cost you $30,000 or more over the life of your home. That's why proper ventilation isn't just a nice to have, it's essential protection for your investment. The good news? A proper ventilation upgrade typically costs just a few $100s, a fraction of what you'll pay if you ignore the problem. It's genuinely one of the best investments you can make in your home's longevity. The professional assessment that saves thousands. After 2 decades of responding to emergency calls, I can walk into an attic and immediately distinguish between ventilation problems and actual leaks. The patterns are completely different when you know what to look for, and understanding these differences can save you from making a very expensive mistake. Let me teach you exactly how to read these signs like a professional. Roof leaks create very specific patterns. You'll see water stains that follow a clear path from a specific entry point. Think of it like a river system on a map. The water enters at one point, maybe through a damaged shingle or compromised flashing, then follows the path of least resistance down. You'll often see staining along rafters, drip marks on insulation directly below the entry point. The damage is localized and traceable. Ventilation problems, on the other hand, create widespread uniform moisture damage across large areas of your roof decking. There's no single entry point because the moisture is coming from inside your home. You might notice the wood feels damp to the touch, even when it hasn't rained in weeks. The insulation might be compressed or show signs of repeated moisture exposure. Metal components like nails and hurricane clips will show rust. And here's a telltale sign many miss. If you see frost on the underside of your roof decking in winter, that's condensation freezing a clear ventilation issue, not a leak. Here's my professional assessment process that you can use yourself. First, check during different weather conditions. If the dampness appears only during or after rain and follows specific paths, you're likely dealing with a leak. If it appears during temperature extremes, very cold winters or hot summers, regardless of precipitation, that points to ventilation. Next, look at the insulation. Leak damage will be localized beneath the leak path. Ventilation problems can cause widespread insulation compression and discoloration. The key thing to understand is this: both problems need to be addressed quickly because they can lead to much bigger and more expensive issues down the road. But the solutions are completely different. A leak might require replacing a few shingles or resealing flashing, typically a few $100s if caught early. Ventilation problems require a systematic upgrade of your attic's airflow system, which is more expensive initially, but prevents tens of thousands in future damage. What I tell every homeowner is this: when in doubt, get a professional assessment. But now that you understand the differences, you can at least identify which type of professional you need. If it's clearly a ventilation issue, you need someone who understands building science and airflow, not just someone who can patch shingles. This knowledge alone puts you ahead of 90% of homeowners who might get sold an unnecessary roof replacement when what they really need is proper ventilation. Now, if you're watching this and thinking about your own attic, here's what I want you to understand. Proper attic assessment isn't just about preventing emergency calls. It's about protecting your family's most important investment. And if you want a professional evaluation of your roof's ventilation system and a comprehensive plan to protect your home for decades to come, you can reach out to our team for a complete roof assessment. We'll identify exactly what's happening in your attic and provide solutions that actually address the root cause, not just the symptoms. You now know how to read your attic like a professional. You understand that dark, widespread staining means ventilation problems in most cases, while localized wet spots during rain mean actual leaks. Most importantly, you know that both require immediate attention, but completely different solutions. This knowledge alone can save you from making a $15,000 mistake when you discover moisture in your attic. Remember, small adjustments now prevent big problems when the weather takes a turn. Whether it's improving your ventilation or fixing a small leak, taking action today protects your investment for decades to come.